Territory of New Mexico, 1873. The waters of Santa Fe Creek cascaded over ancient stones, creating a symphony that drowned out all other sounds of the wilderness. Hannah Walker slipped from her horse, her boots landing softly on the moss-covered ground. The 18-year-old daughter of Colonel James Walker, commander of Fort Union, had once again escaped the suffocating walls of military life. Her honey-blonde hair, usually pinned tightly according to proper military fashion, now flowed freely down her back, catching the dappled sunlight that broke through the pine canopy. "Just a few hours," she whispered to her mare, tethering the animal to a low-hanging branch. "Father will never notice I'm gone." Hannah had grown expert at timing her escapes. Colonel Walker would be occupied with military affairs until sunset, and her absence from afternoon tea with the officers' wives would be explained away by a fabricated headache, courtesy of her loyal maid, Eliza. The cool mountain air carried the scent of pine and wildflowers as Hannah made her way toward the hidden pool formed by the waterfall. Here among the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, she found the freedom she craved, away from the rigid schedules, proper etiquette, and the constant scrutiny that came with being the colonel's daughter. She slipped behind the curtain of falling water into a small alcove she had discovered months ago. It was her secret sanctuary, the one place where she could be herself without judgment or expectation. Hannah carefully removed her riding dress, folding it neatly beside her boots, and waded into the crystal-clear pool in her undergarments. The cold water sent a pleasant shock through her body. She dove beneath the surface, letting the currents wash away the weight of propriety that clung to her at the fort. When she emerged, gasping and laughing, Hannah had the distinct sensation of being watched. Her laughter died on her lips as she turned toward the shore. Standing motionless among the pines was a man, tall, copper-skinned, with eyes as dark and unfathomable as the night sky. He wore buckskin leggings and carried a knife at his waist, his chest bare save for a medicine pouch hanging from a leather cord around his neck. His long black hair was adorned with a single eagle feather, an Apache warrior. Hannah's heart hammered against her ribs. She should scream, flee, hide. Everything her father had taught her about encountering savages demanded such actions. Yet she remained still, transfixed by the warrior's gaze. "This is sacred water," he said in perfect, albeit accented English. "You bathe in spirits of my ancestors." Hannah swallowed hard, finding her voice. I didn't know. I'll leave." She moved toward the shore, only to stop when the warrior raised his hand. "You are not afraid," he observed, his head tilting slightly. "Should I be?" Hannah challenged, surprising herself with her boldness. The corner of his mouth curved upward, not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement. Most white women would scream at sight of Apache. "I'm not most white women," Hannah replied, lifting her chin. Water dripped from her hair down her shoulders, and she became acutely aware of her state of undress. Yet the warrior's eyes never left her face. "No," he agreed. "You are not." He took a step back. "I will go. You finish." "Wait," Hannah called, uncertain why she wished him to stay. "What's your name?" He paused, studying her with those penetrating eyes. "I am called Nokashi. I'm Hannah Walker." "Walker," he repeated, his expression shifting subtly. "Daughter of Colonel Walker." Hannah hesitated, then nodded. Nokashi's face hardened. "Your father hunts my people, calls us animals." "I'm not my father," Hannah said firmly. "I don't believe what he says about the Apache." "What do you believe, Hannah Walker?" The way he spoke her name sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "I believe in judging people by their actions, not by what others say about them." Nokashi considered her words, then reached into a small pouch at his waist. He withdrew something and extended his closed fist toward her. "Come, take." Hannah hesitated only briefly before wading closer to the shore. When she was near enough, Nokashi opened his hand, revealing a small polished stone of deep turquoise. "Protection," he explained, as she cautiously took it from his palm, "from water spirits." Their fingers brushed, and Hannah felt a jolt of awareness travel up her arm. "Thank you," she whispered. Nokashi nodded once, then turned to leave. "Will I see you again?" The question escaped before Hannah could consider its implications. The Apache warrior paused, looking back over his shoulder. "Perhaps if spirits wish it." Then he vanished into the forest as silently as he had appeared. Hannah stood in the water, clutching the turquoise stone, her heart racing with fear, curiosity, and something else she couldn't name. She knew she should report the encounter to her father immediately. An Apache warrior so close to Fort Union was information the colonel would consider vital. But as she dressed and mounted her horse for the return journey, Hannah knew she would keep this encounter to herself. The stone felt warm in her pocket, a secret weight that somehow made her feel both lighter and more grounded than she had ever been. The following afternoon found Hannah riding toward the waterfall again, telling herself she merely wished to enjoy the solitude. But her eyes constantly scanned the tree line, searching for a glimpse of the warrior who had occupied her thoughts since their encounter. She was halfway through her ride when she heard the snapping of a twig behind her. Hannah turned in her saddle to find Nokashi walking alongside her horse, moving with the silent grace of a mountain lion. "You return," he stated simply. "As do you," Hannah replied, pulling her mare to a halt. "These mountains are Apache land," Nokashi said. "Your father claims with paper, but Earth knows true owners." Hannah dismounted, facing the warrior. In the full light of day, she could see details she had missed before, a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw, the complex patterns of beadwork on his medicine pouch, the keen intelligence in his eyes. "Why aren't you with your people?" she asked. "I scout, watch soldier movements." He gave her a pointed look. "Watch Colonel's daughter ride alone where she should not be." Hannah felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Are you going to take me prisoner?" Nokashi's expression remained impassive, but his eyes held a glint of amusement. "What would I do with Colonel's daughter? Your father would bring army to mountains. Many would die. Then why speak to me at all?" "You different," he said after a moment of consideration. "You see world with open eyes, rare among your people." They walked side by side through the forest, leading Hannah's horse. Nokashi pointed out plants and their uses, which berries were safe to eat, which leaves could heal wounds, which bark could bring down fever. Hannah listened, fascinated by his knowledge and the quiet authority with which he shared it. When they reached the waterfall, Nokashi showed her how to move silently through the underbrush, how to read animal tracks, how to find north without a compass. Hannah, in turn, told him about the books she read in secret, tales of far-off lands and adventurous women who defied convention. As the sun began to set, Hannah reluctantly prepared to leave. "I must return before my father sends a search party." Nokashi nodded. "Tomorrow?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither fully understood. Hannah knew she was playing a dangerous game, yet she couldn't bring herself to end it. "Tomorrow," she confirmed. On the third day, Hannah arrived at the waterfall to find Nokashi waiting, a small fire burning in a protected hollow of rock. Beside it lay a freshly caught rabbit, already skinned and prepared for cooking. "I will teach you to make Apache meal," he said by way of greeting. Hannah spent the afternoon learning to prepare food the Apache way, to identify edible plants, to move through the forest without leaving tracks. As they ate, she told Nokashi about her mother who had died when she was 12, about her dreams of traveling beyond the territories, about her frustration with the life laid out for her, marriage to an officer, endless dinner parties, and the stifling role of a military wife. Nokashi listened, his dark eyes reflecting the dancing flames. When she finished, he spoke of his own life, his training as a warrior, the beauty of Apache ceremonies, and the increasing encroachment of white settlers on his people's lands. "My father says the Apache raid settlements, kill innocent people," Hannah ventured cautiously. "Some do," Nokashi acknowledged. "As some soldiers kill innocent Apache. War makes monsters of men on both sides." As night fell, neither made a move to part ways. The air between them had changed, charged with unspoken tension. Hannah knew she should return to the fort, but the thought of leaving the quiet intimacy they had built was unbearable. "I should go," she said softly, not moving. "Night is dangerous," Nokashi replied. "Stay until morning." Hannah knew the decision before her would alter the course of her life. Yet sitting across the fire from this man who saw her, truly saw her, made the choice seem inevitable. "I'll stay," she whispered. Under a blanket of stars, with the sound of the waterfall creating a cocoon of privacy around them, Hannah and Nokashi's tentative touches evolved into passionate embraces. He was gentle, yet fierce, his hands tracing her body with reverence that made her feel both worshipped and desired. "This cannot be undone," he murmured against her ear. "I don't want it undone," Hannah replied, drawing him closer. They came together on a bed of soft pine needles, the moonlight filtering through the trees, casting dappled shadows on their entwined forms. For Hannah, it was a liberation, from society's constraints, from her father's expectations, from her own fears. In Nokashi's arms, she found a freedom more profound than any she had experienced in her solitary rides through the mountains. Later, as they lay wrapped in Nokashi's blanket beneath the stars, he traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "My people believe that when souls meant to find each other connect, stars shine brighter," he said softly. Hannah looked up at the brilliant points of light above them. "They do look brighter tonight." Nokashi's fingers found the turquoise stone, which Hannah had strung on a leather cord around her neck. "This stone is old. It carries memories of mountains, of rivers that have dried, of people long gone to spirit world. Now it will carry memory of this night." Hannah turned to face him, memorizing every detail of his face in the silvery light. "Will you come back to the fort with me? Speak to my father." Nokashi's expression sobered. "Your father would hang me from nearest tree." "Then I'll come with you," Hannah said impulsively. "To your people. They would not accept you. Not now. War is coming, Hannah Walker. Your father leads soldiers who will fight my people." "Then what do we do?" Nokashi cupped her face in his hands. "I must go. My chief needs what I have learned about soldier movements." "When will I see you again?" Hannah asked, fear clutching at her heart. "I cannot say. But I make this vow, one day I will return for you." His eyes burned with intensity. "If you still wish it, then I will take you far from here, where no one knows Apache or white, where we can live as man and woman." "I'll wait," Hannah promised, tears streaming down her face. "No matter how long it takes." As dawn broke over the mountains, Hannah dressed and prepared to return to the fort. Nokashi watched her, his face once again the impassive mask of a warrior. "Keep stone close," he said. "When moon is full, hold it and think of me. I will feel your thoughts across distance." Hannah nodded, too overcome with emotion to speak. Nokashi stepped forward, kissing her one last time with a passion that seared itself into her memory. Then, without another word, he melted into the forest, becoming one with the shadows beneath the pines. Hannah mounted her horse, her body still tingling from his touch, her heart already aching with his absence. As she rode back toward Fort Union, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Territory of New Mexico, 1878. The summer sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty yard of the Walker Ranch. Hannah wiped sweat from her brow as she directed the ranch hands loading supplies onto the wagon. At 23, she had grown into a woman of remarkable competence and quiet strength, managing the sprawling property she had inherited from her uncle with a firm hand and keen business sense. "Miss Walker, where do you want these seed sacks stored?" called Miguel, one of her most trusted workers. "In the north shed, please," Hannah replied, "and make sure they're elevated off the ground. We had mice get into them last season." Miguel nodded, motioning to the other workers to follow his lead. Hannah watched with satisfaction as her instructions were carried out efficiently. The ranch had prospered under her management, much to the surprise of neighboring landowners, who had predicted failure for a colonel's daughter playing at ranching. Hannah had proven them all wrong. Her cattle herd had nearly doubled, her crops yielded consistently good harvests, and she had even begun breeding horses that were gaining reputation throughout the territory. What had begun as an escape from her father's overbearing presence had become a genuine calling. "Mail's here, Miss Walker," announced Eliza, who had left Fort Union with Hannah and now served as her housekeeper and companion. The older woman handed Hannah a small stack of envelopes. "And another letter from your father." Hannah sighed, recognizing the colonel's handwriting immediately. She tucked the letters into her pocket to read later. Her relationship with her father had grown increasingly strained over the years, particularly since she had rejected every suitor he had sent her way, including Captain William Reynolds, his most trusted officer. "Also, Captain Reynolds sent word he'll be stopping by this afternoon," Eliza added, watching Hannah's face carefully. "Says he has important business to discuss." Hannah's jaw tightened. "I'm sure he does." Inside the cool adobe walls of the main house, Hannah washed the dust from her hands and face before settling at her desk to read her father's letter. As expected, it contained another lecture about her unnatural independence and the importance of securing her future through an advantageous marriage. Captain Reynolds has expressed his continued interest in your hand, despite your previous rejections. He is a fine officer with excellent prospects, and would provide the protection and guidance you so clearly need. I have given him my blessing to call upon you again, and I expect you to receive him with the courtesy befitting his station." Hannah folded the letter carefully and placed it in the drawer with dozens of similar missives. Her father refused to understand that she had no intention of relinquishing her freedom to any man except one who had vanished into the wilderness 5 years ago. The turquoise stone hung warm against her skin, hidden beneath her practical work dress. 5 years had passed since that night by the waterfall, yet Hannah's memories remained as vivid as if it had happened yesterday. During each full moon, she had faithfully held the stone and sent her thoughts into the night, wondering if Nokashi could truly feel them across the distance, wondering if he even lived. The Apache wars had intensified over the years. Newspapers regularly reported skirmishes, raids, and retaliations. Hannah scanned every article with dread, searching for any mention of casualties, praying never to see a description that might match Nokashi. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Eliza appeared, her expression apologetic. "Captain Reynolds is here, Miss Walker." Hannah smoothed her dress and straightened her shoulders. "Show him in, please." Captain William Reynolds entered with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to command. At 32, he cut an imposing figure in his cavalry uniform, his light brown hair neatly trimmed beneath his hat, his face weathered from years of frontier duty. "Miss Walker," he greeted, removing his hat. "You're looking well." "Captain Reynolds," Hannah replied coolly. "What brings you to my ranch today?" Reynolds glanced at Eliza, who hovered in the doorway. "Might we speak privately?" Hannah nodded to her housekeeper, who reluctantly withdrew. Once alone, Reynolds' formal demeanor softened slightly. "Hannah, your father is concerned about you. We all are." "I'm perfectly capable of managing my affairs, Captain." "That's not in question," Reynolds said, pacing the room. "Your success with this ranch has surprised everyone, but you're isolated out here, vulnerable. The Apache have been increasingly active in these parts." Hannah's heart quickened at the mention of the Apache. "Has there been trouble nearby?" 3 homesteads burned last month just 20 miles north, and there are rumors—" He hesitated. "What rumors?" Hannah pressed. Reynolds sighed. "Intelligence suggests that Broken Knife's band is operating in this region. They're led by a particularly dangerous warrior, known for his raids against military targets." "And what does this have to do with me?" Hannah asked, though she felt a chill run down her spine at the mention of Broken Knife. The name had appeared in newspaper accounts of some of the most daring Apache raids over the past few years. "Your father commanded the campaign against Broken Knife's people 3 years ago. If they discovered his daughter lived alone on an isolated ranch—" Reynolds left the implication hanging. Hannah squared her shoulders. "I appreciate your concern, Captain, but I have capable ranch hands, good dogs, and I can shoot as well as any of your soldiers." Reynolds stepped closer. "Hannah, be reasonable. This isn't just about your safety. Your father isn't getting any younger. His greatest wish is to see you settled before he retires." "Settled?" Hannah repeated flatly. "You mean married to you? Would that be so terrible?" Reynolds asked softly. "I've admired you for years, Hannah. I would give you freedom to continue managing this ranch if that's what you wish. I wouldn't change you." For a moment, Hannah allowed herself to consider his offer. William Reynolds was not a bad man. He was honorable, respected, and had never treated her with condescension as many other officers had. Perhaps after 5 years of waiting for a ghost, it was time to accept that Nokashi was never coming back. The turquoise stone seemed to pulse against her skin, a silent rebuke to her wavering faith. "I'm sorry, William," she said gently. "My answer remains the same." Reynolds's jaw tightened, but he nodded stiffly. "Your father suspected as much. He asked me to deliver this message. If you will not consider my suit, he insists you return to Fort Union, where he can ensure your safety." Hannah's temper flared. "I am not a child to be ordered about. This ranch is mine, and I will not abandon it because my father is having another fit of overprotectiveness." "It's not just overprotectiveness, Hannah. There's genuine danger. The Apache—" "Not all Apache are murderers, despite what my father would have you believe," Hannah snapped. Reynolds regarded her curiously. "You've always been unusually sympathetic to them. Some might find that concerning, given the current climate." Hannah realized she had revealed too much. She moderated her tone. I simply believe in judging individuals rather than condemning an entire people. Surely that's not so radical a notion. Perhaps not, Reynolds conceded. But these are dangerous times for such philosophical distinctions. He retrieved his hat. Think about what I've said, Hannah. Your father has given you until the end of the month to make your decision. Accept my proposal or return to Fort Union. After that, he's prepared to send soldiers to escort you back, willing or not. He wouldn't dare, Hannah breathed. He would. He believes it's for your own good. Reynolds paused at the door. For what it's worth, I hope you choose me rather than your father's alternative. At least with me, you'd maintain some independence. After Reynolds departed, Hannah paced the room in agitation. Her father's ultimatum left her with impossible choices. Surrender her freedom by marrying a man she didn't love, return to the suffocating environment of Fort Union, or face the humiliation of being forcibly removed from her own property. As darkness fell, Hannah stepped onto the porch of her ranch house, gazing up at the night sky. The moon was nearly full, its silver light bathing the landscape in ethereal glow. She clutched the turquoise stone, closing her eyes. "Where are you, Nokashi?" she whispered to the night. "You promised to return." The wind carried no answer, only the distant howl of a coyote and the rustling of cottonwood leaves. 3 days later, a fierce summer storm descended upon the ranch. Lightning split the sky as Hannah made her final rounds, checking that the livestock was secure and the buildings battened down against the coming deluge. Wind whipped her hair as she hurried toward the main house, the first heavy raindrops beginning to fall. She had just reached the porch when the dogs began to bark furiously, not their usual alert barking at wildlife, but the aggressive warning that signaled a human presence. Hannah's hand moved to the pistol she kept at her waist. Miguel and the other hands had departed hours ago for their own homes, leaving her and Eliza alone on the property. "Eliza," Hannah called as she entered the house, "fetch the shotgun from my bedroom." The housekeeper hurried to comply as Hannah peered through the window, trying to discern any movement in the storm-darkened yard. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the landscape, and a figure standing motionless beside the corral. Hannah's breath caught. The figure was tall, wearing what appeared to be buckskins, his long hair whipping in the wind. Before she could get a better look, darkness reclaimed the yard. "Here's the shotgun, Miss Walker," Eliza said, her voice trembling. "Should I load it?" "It's already loaded," Hannah replied absently, her eyes still fixed on the spot where she had seen the figure. "Stay inside and lock the door behind me." "You're going out there in this storm?" Eliza protested. "Miss Walker, please." "Lock the door," Hannah repeated firmly, taking the shotgun. "If I'm not back in 10 minutes, fire 3 shots into the air. That will bring Miguel running from his cabin." Before Eliza could object further, Hannah stepped back onto the porch. The rain was falling in earnest now, a curtain of water that limited visibility to a few yards. The dogs continued their frantic barking, straining at their chains near the barn. Hannah descended the porch steps, the shotgun held ready. "Who's there?" she called over the storm. "This is private property." Another flash of lightning revealed the figure had moved closer, now standing at the edge of the yard. Hannah raised the shotgun to her shoulder, her finger resting beside the trigger. "Stop where you are and identify yourself." The wind shifted, carrying a voice that froze Hannah to the spot. Hannah Walker. It wasn't a question, but a statement. Her name spoken in a deep, accented voice she had heard in her dreams for 5 years. The shotgun wavered in her hands. "Nokashi," she whispered. Then louder, "Nokashi, is that you?" Lightning flashed again, longer this time, illuminating the man who stood before her. He was broader than she remembered, his face leaner, with new scars visible on his chest and arms. His eyes were the same, dark, intense, fixed on her with an expression that made her heart race. The shotgun slipped from Hannah's nerveless fingers as Nokashi closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. They stood facing each other in the pouring rain, 5 years of absence suspended between them like the charged air before lightning strikes. "You came back," Hannah breathed, scarcely believing her eyes. "I promised," Nokashi replied simply. His hand rose, fingers brushing the outline of the turquoise stone beneath her wet dress. "You kept it." Hannah's composure broke. With a sob, she threw herself against his chest, his arms closing around her in a grip that was almost painful in its intensity. The rain pounded down on them, but neither moved to seek shelter, both too afraid that if they broke this embrace, the other might vanish like morning mist. When Nokashi finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "I have come to fulfill my vow, if you still wish it." Hana pulled back just enough to see his face. "I've waited 5 years. I never stopped waiting." Nokashi's eyes searched hers. "World has not changed, Hana Walker. Your father still hunts my people still fight white soldiers. We would be outcasts among both." "I don't care," Hana said fiercely. "We'll go where no one knows us, just as you promised." A shout from the house interrupted them. Eliza stood on the porch, a lantern in one hand, her other reaching for the pistol at her waist, when she saw the Apache warrior holding Hana. "Miss Walker, get away from him." "Eliza, no," Hana called back, stepping protectively in front of Nokashi. "He's a friend." The housekeeper's jaw dropped in astonishment, but she lowered her hand from the pistol. "Come inside," Hana said to Nokashi, taking his hand. "You're soaked through and we have much to discuss." Nokashi hesitated, his eyes moving from Hana to the nervous housekeeper and back. Then he nodded once, allowing Hana to lead him toward the house. Eliza backed away as Hana led Nokashi into the warm kitchen, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Miss Walker, what on earth are you doing? He's an Apache." "Yes, he is," Hana replied calmly, though her heart was racing. "And he's my guest. Please fetch some towels and prepare some hot food." The housekeeper didn't move, her gaze fixed on Nokashi, who stood silently dripping on the wooden floor. "Does your father know about this?" Hana's expression hardened. "My father has no say in who I welcome into my home. Now please, Eliza, the towels." With obvious reluctance, Eliza departed, casting suspicious glances over her shoulder. Once alone, Hana turned to Nokashi, suddenly shy despite the passionate reunion moments before. "You're exactly as I remembered," she said softly. Nokashi's eyes took in the room, the well-appointed furniture, the copper pots hanging from hooks, the oil lamps casting a warm glow. "You have become important woman, a chief among your people." Hana smiled at the comparison. "Hardly that, but I've built something here that's mine." She stepped closer, reaching up to touch his face, tracing the new scar that ran along his jawline. "You've been fighting." "Yes." He caught her hand, pressing it against his cheek. "Many battles, many deaths." His expression darkened. "Your father's soldiers killed half my band 3 summers ago. Women, children. I alone escaped." Hana closed her eyes, pain washing over her. "I'm so sorry, Nokashi. I had no idea. Why would you? Newspapers do not report Apache tears, only Apache raids." His voice was bitter, but his touch remained gentle as he cupped her face. "After massacre, I became broken knife, led warriors against soldiers who destroyed my people." Hana's blood turned cold. "Broken knife? Your broken knife?" Nokashi nodded, watching her face carefully. "This name troubles you. Captain Reynolds was here just days ago, warning me about Broken Knife's band operating in this area." Hana's mind raced. "He said my father led the campaign against your people 3 years ago." "Yes. Colonel Walker ordered attack on our winter camp, said we violated treaty by hunting on forbidden land." Nokashi's eyes hardened. "We were starving. Government agents stole food promised to us." Hana felt sick. Her father had been responsible for the slaughter of Nokashi's people, and now Nokashi, as Broken Knife, had become the most feared Apache leader in the territory. The situation was more impossible than she had imagined. Eliza returned with towels, her manner still stiff with disapproval. She handed them to Hana rather than directly to Nokashi, then announced, "I've put stew on to heat. It'll be ready shortly." She hesitated. "Will he be staying?" Hana glanced at Nokashi, unsure herself of the answer. "I go before dawn," Nokashi said. "Too dangerous to stay." After Eliza withdrew again, Hana led Nokashi to sit by the fire, helping him remove his wet buckskin shirt. She caught her breath at the sight of his torso, now marked with several new scars, evidence of the battles he had fought in their years apart. "I thought of you every full moon," she said, as she gently dried his long hair with a towel. "Just as you told me to." "I felt your thoughts," Nokashi replied. "They kept me alive when soldiers had me surrounded in canyon, when I was wounded with fever, when spirits of my dead called me to join them." Hana's hands stilled. You nearly died? Many times. He took her hands in his. But I made vow to return. Death could not take me until I fulfilled promise. And now? Hannah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What happens now that you've returned? Nokashi's eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. I have place. High in mountains where white men do not go. Valley with clear water, good hunting. I have built lodge there, waiting for you, if you still wish to come. You want me to go with you? Tonight? Soon. Not tonight. Nokashi glanced toward the window where rain still pounded against the glass. Storm gives cover for my visit, but soldiers patrol roads even in rain. We must plan. Hannah's mind whirled with implications. Leaving meant abandoning everything she had built. Her ranch, her independence, her position in society. Yet staying meant losing Nokashi again, perhaps forever. My father has issued an ultimatum, she told him. I must either marry Captain Reynolds or return to Fort Union by the end of the month. If I refuse both, he'll send soldiers to force me back. Nokashi's expression darkened. Then we have little time. Their conversation was interrupted by Eliza, bringing a tray with bowls of stew and fresh bread. She set it down without a word and quickly departed, her disapproval evident in every movement. She fears me, Nokashi observed. She fears for me, Hannah corrected. Eliza has been with me since I was a child. She's like family. Would she betray us to your father? Hannah considered the question carefully. No, she's loyal to me first. But she'll try to convince me that going with you is madness. Is it not? Nokashi asked softly. Apache warrior and colonel's daughter. Hannah reached across the table, taking his hand. If it's madness, then it's a madness I've lived with for 5 years. Every suitable man who came calling left disappointed, because none of them were you. They ate in companionable silence, the years of separation melting away in the warmth of the kitchen. Hannah studied Nokashi's face, noting the new lines at the corners of his eyes, the greater gravity in his bearing. He had changed, as had she, but the connection between them remained undiminished. After their meal, Hannah showed Nokashi around the ranch house, explaining how she had transformed her uncle's neglected property into a thriving enterprise. Nokashi listened attentively, asking questions about her methods and decisions, showing genuine interest in the life she had built. How you have become strong leader, he said with approval. My people would respect such skill had you been born Apache. And now? Hannah asked. Would your people accept me if I went with you? Nokashi's expression grew somber. I have no people now. Those who followed Broken Knife have scattered or been killed. I fight alone. Then who lives in this valley you spoke of? No one. It is place I found when hunting, far from Apache lands, far from white settlements. A place to start new life. He took her hands in his. But Hannah Walker must understand life there would be hard. No fine house, no servants, only what we build with our hands. I'm not afraid of hard work, Hannah replied, and I've learned much about surviving on the frontier. Nokashi smiled, a rare, full smile that transformed his face. Yes, Colonel's daughter has become mountain woman. The smile faded. But dangers remain. Your father will not let you go easily. And there are those among both white men and Apache who would hunt us if they knew of our plan. Then we must be careful, Hannah said. I have money saved, enough to buy supplies, horses, whatever we need. We could leave before my father's deadline. They talked late into the night, planning their escape and the life they would build together. Nokashi would return in 3 days' time, after scouting the safest route to their mountain sanctuary. Hannah would quietly convert her assets to cash, pack only essential supplies, and prepare to leave the ranch in Miguel's capable hands. As dawn approached, Nokashi prepared to depart. The storm had passed, leaving a landscape washed clean, the air fragrant with sage and pinon. 3 days, he confirmed as they stood on the porch. When moon is quarter full. Hannah nodded, fighting back tears. Even this brief separation seemed unbearable after having found him again. I'll be ready. Nokashi cupped her face in his hands, his eyes memorizing every detail. 5 years I carried your face in my heart. 3 more days is nothing. He kissed her then, a kiss that held all the longing of their years apart, and the promise of the future they would forge together. When they finally broke apart, Hannah pressed her forehead to his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Be safe, she whispered. Always, Nokashi promised. Then, with one last touch of her hair, he stepped away, moving swiftly and silently into the lightening landscape. Hannah watched until he disappeared among the distant cottonwoods, the turquoise stone warm against her skin. 3 days, and their new life would begin. She spent the next 2 days in careful preparation. She visited the bank in Santa Fe, converting most of her assets to cash and gold coins, which she secured in a small leather pouch. She sent letters to her suppliers and business associates, explaining that she would be traveling for an extended period and that her foreman, Miguel, would manage ranch affairs in her absence. Throughout it all, Eliza watched with growing concern, her disapproval evident in her tight-lipped silence and worried glances. On the afternoon of the second day, as Hannah packed a saddlebag with essential clothing, the housekeeper could contain herself no longer. "Miss Walker, I must speak plainly," Eliza said, standing in the doorway of Hannah's bedroom. "This course you're set upon is madness." Hannah continued, folding a practical riding dress. "I've made my decision, Eliza. To run away with an Apache warrior? A man your father's soldiers have hunted for years?" Eliza stepped into the room, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "Do you have any idea what people will say? What will happen to your reputation, to everything you've built here?" "I don't care what people say," Hannah replied firmly, "and the ranch will continue under Miguel's management." "And what of your father? Do you think Colonel Walker will simply accept that his daughter has gone off with broken knife?" Eliza's eyes filled with tears. "He'll hunt you to the ends of the earth, child." Hannah paused, turning to face her longtime companion. "I know you're concerned for me, Eliza, but I've waited 5 years for Nokashi. I love him." "Love?" Eliza scoffed. "What do you know of love from 3 days by a waterfall 5 years ago? This isn't one of your romantic novels, Miss Walker. This is real life, with real consequences." "Don't you think I know that?" Hannah's patience frayed. "I've spent 5 years building this ranch, proving I can stand on my own. I've rejected every suitor my father has paraded before me, because none of them saw me as anything but Colonel Walker's daughter. Nokashi sees me, the real me." Eliza shook her head sadly. "And where will this great love take you? To some isolated valley, where you'll live like a savage, far from civilization, from medicine, from everything you've known." "We'll build a new life," Hannah insisted. "One where we can be together without prejudice, without the weight of 2 worlds trying to tear us apart." "If you believe that, you're more naive than I thought," Eliza said softly. "The world doesn't let people simply disappear and start over, especially not people like you and him." Hannah turned back to her packing, her movements more forceful. "My mind is made up, Eliza. I'm leaving with Nokashi tomorrow night. You can either accept that or not, but you won't change my decision." The housekeeper was quiet for so long that Hannah thought she might have left. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy with resignation. "I've watched over you since you were a girl, Miss Walker. I promised your mother on her deathbed that I would protect you. Please don't ask me to stand by while you throw your life away." Hannah set down the clothing in her hands and crossed to Eliza, taking the older woman's weathered hands in hers. "I'm not throwing my life away. I'm choosing it for myself on my own terms. Can't you understand that?" Eliza's eyes searched Hannah's face, finding only determination there. She sighed deeply. "I understand that you believe you're following your heart. I only pray it doesn't lead you to ruin." She squeezed Hannah's hands once, then gently pulled away. "I'll prepare a special dinner tonight. If this is to be one of our last meals together, it should be memorable." As Eliza left the room, Hannah felt a pang of guilt. The housekeeper had been a constant in her life, a surrogate mother after her own had passed. Leaving would hurt Eliza deeply, yet Hannah couldn't let that sway her resolve. Tomorrow night, when Nokashi returned, she would begin her new life, no matter the cost. The following morning dawned clear and bright, the kind of perfect New Mexico day that made the mountains seem close enough to touch. Hannah rose early, her stomach fluttering with anticipation. By this time tomorrow, she and Nokashi would be high in the mountains, beyond the reach of her father's influence. She spent the morning making final arrangements with Miguel, who accepted her instructions with his usual quiet competence. If he suspected anything unusual about her extended trip, he gave no indication, merely assuring her that the ranch would be well cared for in her absence. "The north pasture needs rotating within the week," Hannah reminded him as they walked the property. "And keep an eye on the young mare. She's close to foaling." "Of course, Miss Walker," Miguel replied. "Don't worry about anything here. We will manage until your return." Hannah felt a twinge of guilt at the deception. Miguel had been loyal and hard-working, helping her transform the ranch into a success, when most had predicted failure. She had prepared documents ensuring he would have authority to make decisions in her absence, with instructions for more permanent arrangements, should she not return within a year. It was the best she could do without revealing the truth. As midday approached, Hannah noticed a cloud of dust on the horizon, riders approaching from the direction of Fort Union. Her heart raced with apprehension. Nokashi wasn't due until nightfall, and unexpected visitors were the last thing she needed today. She shaded her eyes, counting the figures as they drew nearer. 6 riders moving at a steady pace rather than the urgent gallop of a military patrol. As they approached, Hannah recognized the lead rider with a sinking feeling. Captain William Reynolds, accompanied by 5 soldiers. "Miss Walker," Reynolds called as he dismounted in the yard. "I hope we find you well." Hannah maintained a composed expression, though her mind was racing. "Captain Reynolds, this is an unexpected visit." Reynolds removed his hat, his manner formal. "Colonel Walker was concerned when he didn't receive a response to his letter. He sent me to ensure your safety and to escort you back to Fort Union, should you have decided to accept his protection." "As you can see, I'm perfectly safe," Hannah replied coolly, "and I haven't yet made my decision regarding my father's offer." Reynolds glanced at the soldiers who remained mounted, then stepped closer to Hannah, lowering his voice. "Hannah, your father is not a patient man. The deadline he set approaches, and Apache activity in the region has increased. He believes, we believe, that you're in genuine danger here." "The only danger I see is my father's determination to control my life," Hannah said sharply. "I have until the end of the month to decide, and I intend to use that time." Reynolds studied her face. "There's something different about you today. You seem anxious." Hannah forced herself to relax. "I'm simply busy, Captain. Running a ranch doesn't allow for much idle time." "Of course." Reynolds nodded, though his expression remained skeptical. "We've ridden far this morning. Might we impose on your hospitality for a meal before returning to the fort?" Hannah wanted nothing more than to send them away immediately, but such behavior would only raise suspicions. "Certainly. Eliza will prepare something. Please make yourselves comfortable." As the soldiers dismounted and led their horses to the watering trough, Hannah hurried to the house, finding Eliza already preparing to feed the unexpected guests. "Did you know they were coming?" Hannah demanded in a harsh whisper. Eliza kept her eyes on her work. "How would I know the captain's plans?" "Eliza, look at me," Hannah insisted. "Did you send word to my father?" The housekeeper finally met Hannah's gaze, her expression a mixture of defiance and guilt. "I did what I had to do to protect you, child." Hannah felt as though she'd been struck. "You betrayed me? After everything we've been through?" "I sent a letter explaining my concerns," Eliza admitted. "I couldn't stand by and watch you destroy yourself." "So my father knows about Nokashi? About our plans?" Hannah's voice rose in panic. "No," Eliza said quickly. "I didn't mention him specifically. I only said I feared you were planning to leave the ranch permanently, possibly in dangerous company. I thought your father would come himself, or at least send more men if he knew the full truth." Hannah gripped the edge of the kitchen table, her knuckles white. "Reynolds and his men can't be here when Nokashi arrives. They'll kill him on sight." "Perhaps that's for the best," Eliza said softly, "before he can take you away to some wilderness where no one will find you." "How dare you?" Hannah hissed. "You had no right—" The kitchen door opened and Reynolds entered, removing his hat. "I apologize for interrupting, but I wondered if I might have a word with you in private, Miss Walker." Hannah straightened, forcing her features into a neutral expression. "Of course, Captain, we can speak in my study." Once alone in the small room that served as her office, Reynolds dropped his formal manner. "Hannah, I'm not here merely as your father's emissary. I'm concerned about you." He paced the room, his expression troubled. "There are rumors, disturbing rumors, about Apache scouts being seen near your property." Hannah kept her face carefully blank. "Rumors are common in frontier settlements, Captain. I've seen no evidence of Apache near my ranch." Reynolds stopped pacing, fixing her with a direct stare. "Are you certain? Nothing unusual in the past few days?" "Quite certain," Hannah lied smoothly. My ranch hands patrol the boundaries daily. They would have reported any sign of intruders. Hannah, Reynolds said, his voice gentling, if you're in some kind of trouble, you can tell me. Whatever it is, I can help you. For a brief, mad moment, Hannah considered confiding in him. William Reynolds was not a cruel man. He had always treated her with respect, even admiration. But he was also a soldier, loyal to her father, and bound by duty to hunt down Apache raiders, especially one as notorious as Broken Knife. There's nothing to tell, William, she said firmly. I appreciate your concern, but it's misplaced. Now, shall we join the others for lunch? Reynolds studied her face for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. As you wish. Throughout the meal, Hannah maintained a facade of calm, engaging in polite conversation, while her mind frantically sought a solution. Reynolds showed no signs of departing any time soon, and the soldiers had made themselves comfortable in the shade of the cottonwoods, clearly prepared for an extended stay. As afternoon stretched toward evening, Hannah grew increasingly desperate. Nokashi would arrive after nightfall, expecting to find her ready to depart. Instead, he would find the ranch occupied by the very men sworn to hunt him down. She needed to warn him, but how? She couldn't leave the ranch without raising suspicions, nor could she send any of her Mexican ranch hands, who might be stopped and questioned by the soldiers. As dusk approached, Reynolds announced his intention to stay the night. Colonel's orders, I'm afraid. We're to ensure your safety until you make your decision. That won't be necessary, Hannah protested. As you can see, the ranch is quite secure. Nevertheless, Reynolds replied firmly, we'll be staying. My men will camp in the yard, and with your permission, I'll take the guest room. Hannah realized with a sinking heart that her father had anticipated her resistance. Reynolds wasn't merely visiting. He was here to prevent her from leaving one way or another. Very well, she conceded, her mind racing. Eliza will prepare the guest room. As darkness fell, Hannah retired to her bedroom, ostensibly to rest, but in reality to plan her escape. She changed into riding clothes and packed a small bag with essentials, then extinguished her lamp and sat by the window, watching the yard. Reynolds had posted 2 soldiers as sentries, while the others bedded down near the barn. The captain himself had retired to the guest room across the hall from Hannah's own bedroom. The house had grown quiet, with only the occasional creak of floorboards as Eliza moved about her evening routine. Hannah's window faced west, toward the mountains where Nokashi would approach. She strained her eyes against the darkness, hoping to catch some sign of him before the soldiers did. The moon, just past its first quarter, as Nokashi had said, provided enough light to see the yard, but cast deep shadows beyond. A soft tap at her bedroom door startled her. "Miss Walker?" Eliza's whispered voice came through the wood. "Are you awake?" Hannah hesitated, still angry at the housekeeper's betrayal, but finally crossed to the door, opening it a crack. "What is it?" Eliza slipped into the room, closing the door quietly behind her. "I've come to help you." "Help me?" Hannah repeated incredulously. "After what you did." "I never meant for soldiers to occupy the ranch," Eliza said, her voice low and urgent. "I only wanted your father to talk sense into you." She wrung her hands. "But seeing you today, how determined you are, I realized I was wrong. Your happiness means more to me than what I think is best for you." Hannah studied the older woman's face, searching for any sign of deception. "Why should I trust you now?" "Because I love you like my own daughter," Eliza replied simply. "And because I have a way to get a message to your Apache." Hannah's heart leaped. "How?" "Miguel," Eliza explained. "He came to the kitchen after dinner asking strange questions about the soldiers' plans. At first I thought nothing of it, but then I saw how he watched the mountains." She lowered her voice further. "He knows, doesn't he, about your Apache?" Hannah hesitated, then nodded. "He's encountered Nokashi before, during his hunting trips. They've developed a cautious respect." "I thought as much," Eliza said. "Miguel is waiting by the old cottonwood beyond the south pasture. He can carry a message before the Apache walks into a trap." Hope surged through Hannah. "Will you take a note to him? The soldiers won't question your movements around the ranch." "I'll do better than that," Eliza replied, reaching into her pocket and withdrawing a folded paper. "I've already written it. All it needs is something your warrior will recognize as coming from you." Hannah touched the turquoise stone at her neck, then impulsively removed it from its leather cord. "Give him this with the note. He'll know it's from me." Eliza took the stone, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm so sorry, child. I thought I was protecting you, but I was only thinking of myself, of losing you." Hannah embraced the woman who had been like a mother to her. "I understand, but I must follow my heart, Eliza." "I know that now," the housekeeper replied, wiping her eyes. "And I'll help you do just that." She tucked the stone and note into her pocket. "I'll tell Miguel to warn your Apache to stay hidden until tomorrow night. By then, I'll have prepared a sleeping draught for the captain's evening tea." Hannah's eyes widened. "Eliza!" "Nothing dangerous," Eliza assured her. "Just something to ensure he sleeps soundly while you slip away. I've learned a few things about herbs in my years on the frontier." With a final embrace, Eliza slipped from the room as quietly as she had entered. Hannah returned to her vigil by the window, her heart lighter despite the complications. If Miguel could reach Nokashi in time, if the soldiers didn't grow suspicious, if Eliza's plan worked, by this time tomorrow she and Nokashi would be on their way to their mountain sanctuary. A movement at the edge of the property caught her eye, a shadow detaching itself from the deeper darkness of the cottonwoods. Miguel making his way toward the rendezvous point. Hannah held her breath, watching until he disappeared from view, carrying her hopes with him. The following day stretched endlessly for Hannah. She went about her normal routine, overseeing ranch operations, reviewing accounts and directing the hands in their daily tasks, all while acutely aware of Captain Reynolds's watchful presence. He accompanied her on her morning inspection of the property, his manner cordial, but his eyes alert for anything unusual. "Your ranch has prospered remarkably under your management," Reynolds commented as they rode alongside a healthy herd of cattle. "Few men could have achieved what you have." "Few men would have been given the chance," Hannah replied. "Women are capable of far more than society generally allows." Reynolds smiled slightly. "I've never doubted your capabilities, Hannah. It's one of the things I admire most about you." His sincere tone made Hannah feel a twinge of guilt. William Reynolds was not a villain in this story, merely a man doing his duty as he understood it, a man who genuinely cared for her in his way. In another life, perhaps she could have returned his feelings. But her heart had been claimed by another in 3 days beside a waterfall 5 years ago. "Captain," she said, turning her horse toward the ranch house, "I've decided to give you my answer regarding my father's ultimatum." Reynolds' eyebrows rose in surprise. "I'm listening." "I need 1 more day," Hannah said carefully. "By tomorrow morning, I'll have my affairs in order and will be ready to depart for Fort Union with you and your men." Reynolds studied her face, clearly searching for any sign of deception. "You'll return to the fort willingly? What changed your mind?" Hannah had prepared for this question. "Your presence here has made me realize the genuine concern my father has for my safety. While I don't agree with his methods, I understand his motivations. I'd prefer to discuss the matter with him directly rather than continue this standoff." For a moment, Reynolds seemed skeptical, but then his expression softened. "I'm glad to hear it, Hannah. Your father will be pleased." He hesitated. "And regarding his other suggestion? About my suit?" Hannah couldn't bring herself to offer false hope. "One decision at a time, Captain. First, I must speak with my father." Reynolds nodded, accepting her answer with good grace. "Of course. We'll depart first thing tomorrow, then." As they returned to the ranch house, Hannah caught sight of Eliza watching from the porch, her face carefully neutral. Their eyes met briefly, an unspoken message passing between them. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Throughout the day, Hannah found small ways to prepare for her departure without arousing suspicion. She visited the safe in her study, retrieving the pouch of gold coins and secreting it in her riding jacket. She wrote letters to her business associates, to be delivered after she was gone. She spent time with each of her favorite horses, saying silent goodbyes to the life she had built. Evening arrived with agonizing slowness. Dinner was a tense affair, with Reynolds making polite conversation while Hannah responded with carefully measured pleasantness. Eliza served the meal with her usual efficiency, giving no indication of the role she would play in the night's events. As they finished the dessert course, Eliza appeared with a tea tray. "I've prepared a special blend, Captain Reynolds. It should help you rest comfortably after your long days in the saddle." Reynolds accepted the cup with a grateful nod. "Most kind of you, Mrs. Martinez." Hannah watched with carefully concealed anticipation as Reynolds drank the tea, commenting on its unusual but pleasant flavor. Within half an hour, his eyelids had begun to droop, his responses becoming slower. "Perhaps I should retire early," he said, stifling a yawn. Tomorrow will be a long ride back to Fort Union. Of course, Hannah agreed, rising from her chair. I'll see you in the morning, Captain. As Reynolds made his way somewhat unsteadily to the guest room, Hannah exchanged a meaningful glance with Eliza. The housekeeper nodded slightly, confirming that the sleeping draught had taken effect. Hannah retreated to her own room, changing quickly into practical riding clothes, sturdy trousers beneath a split skirt, a warm jacket, and durable boots. She braided her hair tightly, then secured the small bag containing her most essential possessions. All that remained was to wait for Nokashi's signal. Shortly before midnight, as Hannah sat by her window watching the moonlit landscape, a low, mournful call echoed across the ranch, the cry of a great horned owl, but with a particular pattern that was not quite natural, Nokashi's signal. Hannah's heart leaped. She took one last look around the bedroom that had been hers for 5 years, then slipped silently into the hallway. She paused outside the guest room, listening for any sound from within. Reynolds's deep, steady breathing confirmed that Eliza's draft had done its work. Downstairs, Eliza waited in the kitchen, a small bundle of food in her hands and tears in her eyes. Miguel has the horses ready behind the orchard, she whispered, pressing the bundle into Hannah's hands. 2 of the soldiers are asleep, but the other 3 are still on watch near the main gate. Hannah embraced the older woman fiercely. Thank you, Eliza, for everything. Be happy, child, Eliza replied, her voice breaking, and if you can, send word sometimes that you're safe. I will, Hannah promised, though both knew it might be a promise she couldn't keep. With a final squeeze of Eliza's hands, Hannah slipped out the back door and into the shadowed yard. She kept to the deepest patches of darkness, moving from the shadow of one building to the next, alert for any sign of the patrolling soldiers. She had nearly reached the orchard when a voice called out, "Who goes there?" Hannah froze, pressing herself against the rough bark of an apple tree. A soldier approached, rifle ready, peering into the darkness. "Show yourself!" For a terrifying moment, Hannah thought discovery was inevitable. Then from the opposite direction came the sound of breaking glass and a commotion near the barn. The soldier turned toward the noise, momentarily distracted. "Check the barn," he called to his companions. "Might be Apache." As the soldiers converged on the barn, Hannah seized her opportunity, darting through the remaining orchard to the small copse of trees beyond. There, as promised, Miguel waited with 2 saddled horses. "Hurry, Miss Walker," he urged, helping her mount. "The distraction will not hold them long." "Thank you, Miguel," Hannah said, taking the reins, "for everything." The ranch foreman nodded solemnly. "May your journey be safe, señorita. Your Apache waits by the lightning-struck pine at the edge of the east pasture." Hannah hesitated. "The ranch will be cared for," Miguel assured her. "I have your instructions. Now go, quickly." Hannah turned her horse toward the east pasture, keeping to a walk until she was well beyond the orchard. Behind her she could hear shouts as the soldiers discovered the broken lantern that had created the distraction. Soon they would realize she was missing. Once clear of the trees, Hannah urged her horse into a gallop across the moonlit pasture. The wind whipped her face as she rode, carrying with it the scent of sage and pine from the mountains, the scent of freedom. At the edge of the pasture stood a lightning-blasted pine, its skeletal form stark against the night sky. As Hannah approached, a shadow detached itself from the darkness, Nokashi, mounted on a strong pinto horse, his rifle across his saddle. "Hannah Walker," he greeted, his voice carrying the same power it had 5 years ago by the waterfall. "Nokashi," she replied, breathless from the ride and the exhilaration of escape. He extended his hand, returning the turquoise stone. "Your message came in time. Miguel is good man." "Yes," Hannah agreed, retying the stone around her neck. "We should hurry. They'll discover I'm gone any minute." As if summoned by her words, a shout echoed from the direction of the ranch house, followed by the pounding of hooves. The soldiers had discovered her absence and were mounting a pursuit. "This way," Nokashi said, turning his horse toward the mountains. "I know paths they cannot follow." They rode hard through the night, pushing their horses up steep trails and through narrow canyons. Nokashi led them along routes that seemed impossibly precarious in the darkness, paths that clung to mountainsides and forded rushing streams. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew fainter, then disappeared entirely as they entered terrain too difficult for men unfamiliar with the wilderness. Dawn found them high in the mountains, their horses tired but still strong. Nokashi called a brief halt beside a clear spring, allowing the animals to drink and rest. "Your father's soldiers lost our trail hours ago," he said, as they shared jerky from Hannah's provisions. "But they will not give up easily. Colonel Walker will send more men, better trackers." "How far to this valley you spoke of?" Hannah asked, stretching her tired muscles. 2 days' ride, Nokashi replied. "Through difficult country. Few white men have ever seen it." Hannah gazed at the spectacular vista spread before them, rugged mountains, verdant valleys, and in the far distance, the dusty plains where Fort Union stood. From this height, the world of military discipline and social conventions seemed impossibly small and insignificant. "I don't care how difficult the journey," she said, turning back to Nokashi, "as long as we're together." Nokashi's usually stoic expression softened. He reached out, tracing the line of her jaw with calloused fingers. 5 years I dreamed of this moment, of taking Hannah Walker to mountain home, but dreams did not prepare me for reality of you." Hannah leaned into his touch. "Is the reality disappointing?" "No," he said softly. "Reality is more beautiful, more brave than dream." He kissed her then, a kiss that held 5 years of longing, of waiting, of fighting to survive long enough to fulfill his promise. Hannah returned it with equal fervor, her hands gripping his shoulders, as if to assure herself he was real, not another phantom from her dreams. When they broke apart, Nokashi pressed his forehead to hers. "We should continue, many miles before night falls." They rode throughout the day, climbing ever higher into the mountains. Nokashi showed Hannah how to read the landscape, how to spot game trails, how to find water in seemingly dry terrain. He shared stories of Apache ways, of ceremonies and beliefs that had sustained his people for generations. In turn, Hannah told him of her life at the ranch, of the challenges she had overcome, of her growing reputation as a successful rancher, despite society's expectations. As evening approached, they made camp in a sheltered hollow. Nokashi built a small, nearly smokeless fire, while Hannah tended to the horses. They worked together with natural ease, as if they had been partners for years rather than separated by time and circumstance. After a simple meal, they spread their bedrolls beneath a canopy of stars more brilliant than any Hannah had ever seen. In the protective circle of Nokashi's arms, she felt a peace that had eluded her since their parting 5 years ago. "Tomorrow we cross into lands even Apache rarely travel," Nokashi said, his voice a deep rumble against her ear. "Spirits guard these mountains, old ones powerful." "Are they friendly spirits?" Hannah asked, only half jesting. "To those who show respect," Nokashi replied seriously. "To those who come with good hearts." He tightened his arm around her. "Sleep now. Dawn comes early in mountains." Hannah closed her eyes, lulled by the steady beat of Nokashi's heart and the whispering of pine boughs overhead. For the first time in 5 years, she fell asleep without holding the turquoise stone and sending her thoughts into the night. She no longer needed to. The man she had waited for was beside her, real and solid, and hers. The journey continued the following day, their path taking them through landscapes of breathtaking beauty and occasional danger. They forded swift mountain streams, navigated narrow ledges, and passed through forests so ancient the trees seemed to whisper with the voices of centuries. By late afternoon, they had reached a high ridge overlooking a hidden valley. Hannah gasped at the sight. Nestled between towering peaks lay a paradise of green meadows, crystal streams, and stands of aspen and pine. A small lake glittered in the center, its waters reflecting the surrounding mountains like a perfect mirror. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "This is place I promised," Nokashi said, pride evident in his voice. "Valley of hidden waters. Apache legends speak of it, but few have found it." "How did you discover it?" Hannah asked as they began the descent into the valley. "After massacre of my band, I wandered many moons, seeking place whites would not follow." Nokashi's expression darkened with the memory. "I was wounded, dying, prayed to spirits for safe passage to next world. Instead, they led me here, to heal, to wait for you." As they rode into the valley, Hannah could see evidence of Nokashi's preparation for their life together. A sturdy lodge stood in a protected grove near the lake, built in a style that blended Apache design with elements of frontier cabins. Nearby, a small corral contained several horses, and a garden plot showed the beginnings of cultivated plants. "You built all this yourself?" Hana asked in amazement. For us, Nokashi confirmed. Home where no one cares if man is Apache or woman is white, where we live by own rules, own hearts. Hana dismounted, overwhelmed by emotion. 5 years ago, beside a waterfall, Nokashi had promised to return for her, to take her to a place where they could be together without the prejudice and violence of their separate worlds. Against all odds, he had kept that promise. Welcome home, Hana Walker, Nokashi said softly, coming to stand beside her. Hana turned to him, tears of joy streaming down her face. I never stopped believing you would come back for me. Even when everyone said I was foolish to wait, to refuse other suitors, I knew in my heart you would return. Nokashi took her hands in his. And I knew you would be waiting. Even when death came close, when soldiers hunted me across mountains, I fought to live, to return, to fulfill vow. As the sun began to set over their hidden valley, painting the peaks with gold and crimson, Hana and Nokashi stood together on the threshold of their new life, a life they had both sacrificed everything to claim. 3 months later, the first snow of winter dusted the high peaks surrounding the Valley of Hidden Waters. Inside the snug lodge, Hana added wood to the fire, while Nokashi prepared venison for their evening meal. They had fallen into a comfortable routine in the months since their arrival, each day bringing new discoveries and deepening the bond between them. Hana had adapted to mountain life with surprising ease. Her years managing the ranch had prepared her for physical labor and resourcefulness, while Nokashi's knowledge of the wilderness filled the gaps in her experience. Together they had expanded the garden, dried herbs and meat for winter, and made the lodge more comfortable with additions of furniture Nokashi crafted from local wood. Storm coming, Nokashi observed, glancing toward the smoke hole in the roof. Big snow tonight. Good thing we finished the north wall reinforcements yesterday, Hana replied, settling beside him near the fire. She had learned to read the weather almost as well as he could, another skill added to her growing repertoire of wilderness knowledge. Nokashi nodded approvingly. You have become mountain woman indeed, Hana Walker. She smiled at his use of her full name, a habit he had never abandoned. And you have become quite the builder. The root cellar you dug will keep our vegetables fresh all winter. They worked together preparing the meal, their movements synchronized from months of partnership. As they ate, Hana reflected on the journey that had brought them to this peaceful existence. Do you ever wonder what happened after we left? She asked. Whether my father sent more soldiers to search for us? For time, yes, Nokashi replied. But mountains keep our secret well. Even best trackers would lose trail in high passes. Hana thought of her father, of Captain Reynolds, of Eliza and Miguel. She had left letters for each, explaining her choice without revealing their destination. Sometimes she felt a pang of regret for the worry she must have caused, but never for the decision itself. Miguel promised to send word if there was serious trouble at the ranch, she said. The fact that we've heard nothing suggests all is well. Nokashi set aside his empty bowl. Spring will come. Then perhaps we journey to trading post. Learn news of world below. The thought both excited and frightened Hana. Their valley was isolated, but not entirely cut off from civilization. Nokashi occasionally made the journey to a remote trading post 2 days' ride away, exchanging furs and crafts for supplies they couldn't produce themselves. So far, Hana had remained in the valley during these trips, but the idea of venturing out, even briefly, held appeal. I'd like that, she said, though I've grown to love our solitude. As have I, Nokashi agreed, moving to sit beside her. Never thought Apache warrior could find peace after so much death. Yet here with you, peace has found me. Hana leaned against his shoulder, contentment washing over her. Outside, snow began to fall in earnest, blanketing their valley in pristine white. Within the lodge, the fire crackled warmly, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Do you regret it? Nokashi asked suddenly. Leaving your world behind? Hana considered the question seriously. She had abandoned a successful ranch, her position in society, the comforts of civilization. She had likely been branded a scandal, her reputation in ruins among the people who had once respected her business acumen, if not her independence. No, she said finally, with absolute certainty. I've found something here worth far more than what I left behind. What is that? Nokashi asked, a rare hint of vulnerability in his voice. Hana turned to face him, taking his scarred hands in hers. Freedom. true freedom to live as my heart dictates, not as society demands. And love, a love powerful enough to bridge two worlds and find its own path. Nokashi's eyes, usually so inscrutable, shone with emotion. In Apache tradition, we do not speak of love as white people do. We show in actions, in providing, in protecting. He hesitated. But for Hannah Walker, I will say words. I love you with strength of mountains, with constancy of stars. And I love you, Hannah replied, her voice thick with emotion, with every breath, with every heartbeat. As the winter storm raged outside, Hannah and Nokashi sealed their declarations with a kiss that held all the promise of their shared future. In this remote valley, they had found what few in their world ever achieved, genuine freedom to love without boundaries or judgment. 1 year later. The summer sun filtered through the aspen leaves, creating dappled patterns on the ground where Hannah knelt in the expanded garden. Her hands moved confidently among the plants, pulling weeds and checking the ripeness of early vegetables. Nearby, a small cradle fashioned from bent willow swayed gently in the breeze, its precious occupant sleeping peacefully. Hannah paused in her work, wiping perspiration from her brow as she glanced toward the cradle. The sight of her 3-month-old daughter never failed to fill her heart with overwhelming joy. Little Sarah, named for Hannah's mother, had her father's dark eyes and her mother's honey-blonde hair, a perfect blending of their separate worlds. The sound of hoofbeats drew Hannah's attention to the path leading from the valley's hidden entrance. Nokashi appeared, returning from his hunting expedition with a deer slung across his horse's back. His face, usually stoic, broke into a rare, full smile at the sight of his wife and daughter. "Successful hunt?" Hannah called as he dismounted. "Very," Nokashi replied, securing his horse before approaching. He bent to kiss Hannah, then moved to the cradle, his expression softening as he gazed at their sleeping child. "She grows stronger each day." "Like her father," Hannah said, coming to stand beside him. Nokashi touched the turquoise stone that now hung from a leather cord around the baby's neck, the same stone he had given Hannah by the waterfall 6 years ago. Stone protects her, as it protected her mother. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by the distant sound of a horse approaching, not from the hunting grounds but from the hidden trail that connected their valley to the outside world. Hannah and Nokashi exchanged alarmed glances. No one had discovered their sanctuary in the year they had lived there. "Take Sarah inside," Nokashi said, his hand moving to the knife at his belt. "I will see who comes." Hannah gathered the sleeping baby and hurried to the lodge, her heart pounding. Through the window, she watched as Nokashi positioned himself between their home and the approaching rider, his stance alert but not yet hostile. The rider emerged from the tree line, a single figure on an exhausted horse. Even at a distance, Hannah recognized the familiar form of Miguel, her former ranch foreman. She gasped, rushing back outside with Sarah still in her arms. "Nokashi, it's Miguel!" she called. "Let him approach." Miguel drew his horse to a halt at the sight of them, relief washing over his weathered face. "Miss Walker, gracias a Dios, I found you." Nokashi relaxed slightly, but remained watchful as Miguel dismounted. The ranch foreman approached slowly, his eyes widening at the sight of the baby in Hannah's arms. "Miguel, what are you doing here?" Hannah asked. "How did you find us?" "Followed trader who said he dealt with lone Apache in mountains," Miguel explained. His speech rushed with urgency. "But there is no time for explanations. I bring warning. Colonel Walker comes with soldiers. They search mountains, canyon by canyon." Hannah felt the blood drain from her face. "My father. How did he know to look here?" "Captain Reynolds," Miguel replied grimly. "He never believed you left willingly. Kept searching, asking questions. Found trader who mentioned Apache man with turquoise who traded furs." Nokashi's expression hardened. "How close?" 3 days, maybe less," Miguel said. "They have Navajo scouts with them. Best trackers in territory." Hannah clutched Sarah closer, fear gripping her heart. They had built a peaceful life here, a family. Now her father's obsession threatened to destroy everything. "We must leave," Nokashi said decisively. "Find new place, farther from white settlements." "But this is our home," Hannah protested, looking around at the lodge they had built, the garden they had tended, the life they had created together. "Home is where we are together," Nokashi reminded her gently. "Valley is just place. Family is what matters. Miguel shifted uncomfortably. There is more news. Your ranch, it prospers still. I have managed as you instructed. He reached into his saddlebag, withdrawing a folded document. Before I left, lawyer in Santa Fe helped prepare this. Deed transferring ranch to corporation, with you as silent owner. You can return, claim your property legally. Colonel Walker would have no authority. Hannah took the document with trembling fingers. Return to the ranch? It would be dangerous, Miguel acknowledged. Colonel Walker still commands Fort Union, but ranch is yours by law. Many in community would support you now. Things have changed in years since you left. Nokashi and Hannah exchanged a long look, years of understanding passing between them in a silent conversation. Finally, Nokashi spoke. What does Hannah Walker wish? Mountain Valley or ranch on plains? Hannah looked down at their daughter, then back to her husband. Neither, she said softly. I wish for our family to be safe and together. Everything else is secondary. Nokashi nodded, pride evident in his eyes. Then we decide together, not from fear but from strength. Through the night, as Miguel rested from his journey, Hannah and Nokashi discussed their options. They could flee deeper into the wilderness, abandoning the home they had built, but preserving their freedom. They could return to claim the ranch, facing the prejudice and potential danger from her father, but regaining Hannah's rightful property. Or they could find another path entirely. By dawn, they had reached a decision. We will not run, Nokashi said as they sat with Miguel over breakfast. Nor will we surrender what we have built here. But the soldiers, Miguel began. Will be met with truth, not fear, Hannah finished. My father has spent a year believing I was kidnapped, coerced. It's time he saw the reality. Their plan took shape quickly. Miguel would return to the searching party, offering to guide them to the valley in exchange for their promise to approach peacefully. Hannah would remain visible, clearly there by choice, while Nokashi would position himself nearby, hidden but ready if needed. It is dangerous gamble, Nokashi cautioned. Your father is proud man. Seeing you with Apache husband, with child of mixed blood, it may enrage rather than convince. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, Hannah said firmly. But I won't spend our lives running from shadows. My father needs to see that I've made my choice freely, and that I've found happiness he never imagined possible for me. 2 days later, they spotted dust on the distant trail, riders approaching the valley. Miguel had succeeded in his mission. Hannah stood in the clearing before their lodge, Sarah in her arms, her heart pounding, but her resolve unshaken. Nokashi had reluctantly agreed to remain hidden until they could assess the situation, though Hannah knew he watched from the nearby rocks, bow and rifle at the ready. The riders emerged from the tree line, Colonel James Walker at the lead, followed by Captain Reynolds and a dozen soldiers. Miguel rode alongside them, his expression tense. When the colonel spotted Hannah standing calmly before a well-built lodge, a baby in her arms, he reined his horse sharply, his face registering shock. "Hannah?" he called, his voice carrying across the clearing. "Hello, father," Hannah replied steadily. Colonel Walker dismounted, handing his reins to a subordinate. He approached slowly, his eyes never leaving her face, as if trying to detect signs of duress or madness. Captain Reynolds followed a few paces behind, his expression unreadable. When the colonel stood before her, Hannah saw that the year had aged him considerably. New lines etched his face, and his hair had gone completely grey. For a moment, beneath the military bearing, she glimpsed vulnerability that reminded her he was, after all, her father. "Are you—" he began, struggling to find words. "Are you well?" "I am very well, father," Hannah replied. "Happier than I've ever been." Colonel Walker's gaze dropped to the baby in her arms, his expression tightening at the sight of the child's mixed heritage. "This is your child?" "Your granddaughter," Hannah confirmed. "Her name is Sarah, after mother." A complex series of emotions crossed the colonel's face: anger, confusion, pain, and beneath it all a flicker of something that might have been longing. "They told me you were taken against your will, that the Apache raider Broken Knife had abducted you." "I left willingly," Hannah said clearly, ensuring her voice carried to all the soldiers. "I chose to build a life with the man I love." "Love?" Colonel Walker spat the word. "What can you know of love with a savage who—" "James," Captain Reynolds interrupted, stepping forward. "Look around you. Does this seem like a woman held captive? Does this home look like the work of a savage? The colonel glared at his subordinate, but Reynolds held his ground. We've searched for a year based on assumptions. Perhaps it's time we listen to what your daughter has to say. Surprise and gratitude washed through Hannah at the captain's unexpected support. She nodded her thanks to him before turning back to her father. I met Nokashi 6 years ago near the waterfall at Santa Fe Creek, she began. We spent 3 days together, and in that time I found something I never knew existed. A connection that transcended all the boundaries you taught me were absolute. He promised to return for me, and 5 years later, he kept that promise. Nokashi, the colonel repeated. You mean Broken Knife, the Apache who has raided settlements and killed soldiers? I mean the man who lost his entire band to a military attack, Hannah replied evenly. The man who built this home with his own hands, who tends our garden, who carves toys for our daughter, who has shown me more respect and love than any man I've ever known. A movement from the rocks caught Hannah's attention. Nokashi had emerged, standing tall and unarmed on the ridge above them. Several soldiers raised their rifles, but Captain Reynolds barked, "Hold your fire!" Colonel Walker followed Hannah's gaze, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm at the sight of the Apache warrior. So, the infamous Broken Knife shows himself at last. "Father, please," Hannah implored. "There has been enough violence, enough hatred. Look around you. We've built a peaceful life here. We harm no one. We ask only to be left in peace." Nokashi descended the slope with dignified grace, coming to stand beside Hannah and their daughter. His face revealed no fear, only quiet determination. "Colonel Walker," he said formally, "I am Nokashi of the Mescalero Apache, once called Broken Knife by your soldiers. Now I am simply husband to your daughter, father to your granddaughter." The colonel stared at Nokashi, decades of ingrained prejudice warring with the evidence before his eyes. "You expect me to accept this? To bless this abomination of a union? We do not seek your blessing," Nokashi replied calmly, "only your understanding that your daughter made her choice freely, that she is safe, that she is loved." Little Sarah chose that moment to wake, her dark eyes blinking open as she let out a small cry. Hannah soothed her gently, and the baby quieted, looking curiously at the strangers before her. The colonel's gaze was drawn to the child, something softening in his expression despite himself. "She has Mary's chin," he said quietly, referring to Hannah's mother, "and her temperament, it seems." The simple observation, so human and grandfatherly, cracked the tension like ice breaking on a spring river. Hannah felt hope rising within her. "Would you like to hold her?" she offered. Colonel Walker hesitated, years of military discipline and racial prejudice visibly battling with the natural instinct of a grandfather. Finally, he extended his arms awkwardly. Hannah placed Sarah carefully in her father's embrace, watching as the hardened military man adjusted his hold to support the baby's head. Sarah regarded him solemnly for a moment, then reached up with a tiny hand to grasp his uniform button. Captain Reynolds stepped forward, addressing the colonel. "Sir, with respect, I believe we've confirmed that Miss Walker is here of her own volition. Our mission was to determine her safety, which we have done." Colonel Walker didn't immediately respond, his attention captured by the granddaughter he had never expected to have. When he finally looked up, his expression had changed subtly. "You truly chose this life?" he asked Hannah. "This man?" "With all my heart," Hannah confirmed, "and I've never regretted it for a moment." The colonel handed Sarah back to Hannah, his movements careful and precise. He straightened his uniform, the military mask falling back into place, though not as completely as before. "I cannot pretend to understand or approve," he said stiffly, "but I cannot deny what I see before me." He turned to Nokashi, meeting the Apache's gaze directly for the first time. "If my daughter or granddaughter ever comes to harm under your care, there is no mountain high enough to protect you from my wrath." Nokashi inclined his head slightly. "I would expect nothing less from father of Hannah Walker." "We'll be departing," the colonel announced to his men. "Captain Reynolds, prepare the troops." As the soldiers began to mount, Reynolds approached Hannah one last time. "I'm glad you found happiness," he said quietly, "even if it wasn't the path any of us expected." "Thank you, William," Hannah replied, "for your understanding today. It made all the difference." The captain nodded, his eyes conveying what words could not, that he had truly cared for her and that in his own way He was releasing her to the life she had chosen. Before mounting his horse, Colonel Walker paused, turning back to Hannah. "The ranch remains mine," Hannah said firmly. "Miguel has managed it well in my absence. I intend to retain ownership, even if I choose to live here." Her father nodded once, accepting her assertion of independence. "You always were stubborn. Like your mother." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Perhaps, when next I have leave from the fort, you might permit another visit." Hannah's eyes widened in surprise. "You would come back? To see us? To see my granddaughter?" the colonel clarified, though his gaze included both Hannah and Nokashi. A man should know his family, regardless of circumstances. It was not acceptance, not quite, but it was a beginning, a crack in the wall of prejudice that had seemed impenetrable. Hannah felt tears spring to her eyes. "We would welcome that, father." As the soldiers departed, Hannah, Nokashi, and Sarah stood together, watching the dust settle on the trail. Miguel approached, satisfaction evident in his weathered face. "I will return to ranch," he said. "Continue management as before. Perhaps in autumn you visit. See how cattle have grown?" Hannah looked to Nokashi, who nodded his agreement. "We would like that, Miguel. Thank you for everything you've done." After Miguel's departure, Hannah and Nokashi returned to their lodge, placing Sarah in her cradle for her afternoon nap. They stood together in the doorway, looking out at their valley, still theirs, still peaceful, despite the intrusion from the world below. "Your father is proud man," Nokashi observed, "but he loves you. This is good beginning." "Do you think he'll ever truly accept us?" Hannah asked, leaning against his shoulder. "Time changes all things," Nokashi replied philosophically. "River wears down even hardest stone given enough seasons." Hannah smiled, turning to embrace him fully. "Whatever happens, we've won the most important battle. We've proven that love can build bridges between worlds that everyone said must remain forever separate." Nokashi stroked her hair, his voice low and intense. "6 years ago, I promised to return for you. Today, I make new promise. Our daughter will grow in world better than one we knew. World where she is proud of both bloodlines, where she walks with head high among all peoples. We'll build that world for her," Hannah vowed, "together." As twilight descended on the valley of hidden waters, Hannah and Nokashi sat on the porch of their lodge, Sarah sleeping peacefully between them. Above them, the first stars appeared in the deepening blue of the sky, the same stars that had witnessed their first night together by the waterfall, that had guided Nokashi back to her after 5 years of separation, that now watched over their family. The turquoise stone gleamed at Sarah's throat, catching the last light of day, a symbol of the protection that would always surround her, the heritage that flowed in her veins, and the love that had defied a world to bring her into being. In this hidden valley, Hannah Walker had found everything she had ever sought: freedom, purpose, love, and now family. The daughter of a colonel and a warrior, the woman who had bridged 2 worlds, gazed contentedly at the life she had chosen and knew with unshakable certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. The end. Dear listener, tonight you've traveled through mountain trails and moonlit valleys, through silence, sacrifice, and love that defied the world. And perhaps just like Hannah and Nokashi, you too carry memories of promises made, of hopes that waited patiently, and of dreams others told you were foolish. But here's the truth. It is never foolish to believe in love. It is never too late to choose peace. And it is always the right time to listen to the voice of your own heart. Some loves don't arrive in youth. They arrive when we are ready. Some freedoms are not granted by others. They are built slowly, bravely, with each step we take toward our own truth. If tonight you feel weary, know that you have weathered more storms than most. And if your heart aches for something long past, take comfort. Love, like the turquoise stone, can carry warmth across any distance, across time itself. As you close your eyes tonight, may your memories bring you comfort, and may tomorrow greet you gently, like the sun rising over a quiet valley. From our hearts to yours, thank you for being with us. With gratitude, Wild West Whispers Team. If this story moved you, inspired you, or simply gave you peace tonight, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Every gesture of support helps us keep creating stories full of love, redemption, and healing. especially for hearts that still believe. At the end of this video, another story suggestion will appear. Click and be surprised by more unforgettable moments.